Hello and welcome to Stay on Target, Games Radar Plus's weekly look at a galaxy far, far away. It's only 5 months to go until Force Awakens hits cinemas, but today we're going to concentrate more on one of the spin-off movies about Han Solo. With me today are Jordan Farley of SFX Magazine and Chris Thurston of PC Gamer. I'm Richard Edwards, the editor of SFX Magazine. But before we get on to Han Solo, we're going to talk a little bit about the news. Now, a little bit has come out this week, and it's not so much about Episode 7 as Episode 8, where it's looking like Benicio del Toro is going to be the villain. Now, this obviously isn't going to be good news for one of the villains in Episode 7, so presumably Kylo Ren's bricking it a little bit. But you know, what do we think of Benicio del Toro as a bad guy?
Well, he's a great actor. I'm sure he could do an exceptional job at it. Of course, we've seen him in a big franchise recently in Guardians of the Galaxy as the Collector, which is a strange, oddball character, not so much villainous as just a complete weirdo. But I can see him playing a straight bad guy, doing a pretty good job with it. Yeah, definitely.
I don't think I've ever seen him not play a weird villain, though. I mean, I'm fine with that, but you know, he's a man with a very malleable face. Definitely.
He's got a lot of presence on screen,
really
definitely.
Does.
Yeah.
I don't think that's not really the type of villain that Star Wars has had, is it? Like that kind of complete out and out charismatic foe. Like they tend to be. You know, you got Vader.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. You get is Dooku.
Yeah.
But it's a very
character actor. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's quite interesting from a point of view of story, certainly for The Force Awakens, that obviously the original trilogy had Darth Vader, who was kind of the big bad all the way through, but this would suggest that this main villain coming in Episode 8, that there's a kind of different structure going on, that Kylo Ren might just be the lackey, the apprentice or whatever, you know, assuming that he doesn't make it. Yeah,
well, it looks, well, from the outside it looks like they're following the prequel structure where, you know, Darth Maul is the big bad in Episode 1 and then Dooku shows up in Episode 2. Maybe that's the kind of things going on, or maybe everyone, you know, keeps going and he's just a new threat that's brought into it.
I suppose, I mean, the original trilogy introduced like Jabba quite late, like as a threat in Episode 1 and 2, and then finally kind of see him in Episode 3.
Well,
so,
well,
it
depends which version you watch, of course, because especially
can we, for the record, assume that terrible
that nobody ever stepped on his tail.
Yeah, exactly. With that in mind, as in the original trilogy, does have a precedent for introducing characters halfway through. Also, just the cavalcade of bounty hunters in Empire Strikes Back. There's precedent for them throwing in new threats without necessarily taking away from the main one. So unless it's confirmed that he is playing the sole villain of the picture, then I don't necessarily wouldn't say that it means bad things for Kylo Ren necessarily.
Who knows?
Although Darth Maul is a really good precedent. Wiry Sith tend not to do brilliantly.
Oh dear. Also, of course, we found out a little bit more about Star Wars Aftermath, which is Chuck Wendig's book set immediately after the end of Return of the Jedi. Now, it looks like Wedge Antilles, the pilot for Luke's mate, who appeared in all the original trilogy, played by Dennis Lawson, is going to be back. So, hunting down Imperial officers, is it?
Basically, he's looking for remnants of Imperial outposts, like their new supply lines, things like that, in the Outer Rim, and he's surveying a planet called Akiva in this excerpt chapter that was posted online, and as soon as he arrives, some Imperial ships show up. So he's obviously been quite lucky in that. So the sixth planet he's explored, he's basically found where they are, which it could be interesting.
Well, it doesn't look like the whole galaxy is going to be sort of peace and light after blowing up the Death Star, because there's hints of unrest on Coruscant, because I think it ties directly into the scene that we saw in the special editions of the crowds pulling down the statue of Palpatine. So
yeah, they pull it down, and then Imperial forces show up, Imperial police officers, and they start shooting at the crowd. So it's obviously still remnants of the Empire hanging around. Yeah, not the remnant, but there are still people stuck around just being jerks to the normies.
Imperial jerks.
Yeah.
Turns out galactic regime change doesn't take
place overnight.
Yeah.
A giant party.
Yes.
Every single planet.
The Ewok party did not save the universe.
I think it's probably what most people were expecting, right? That there would be some remnant of the Empire.
I think so, and I mean that this is something that they've dealt with in the old expanded universe as well. You know, the Empire didn't go away straight away, and should it? But I mean, it's nice to see it kind of in solid form, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
I always thought that ending celebration scene, as they expanded it and expanded it and expanded it, because it was in the original cut of Return of the Jedi, it's just the Ewoks.
It's just the Ewoks, yeah, singing Yub Nub.
And that makes sense in a way, because as they've expanded that scene to involve parties on every planet you've previously seen, off and Hoth, the question of how do they all find out
News travels fast in a galaxy far, far
About
away.
a secret battle station
There,
that
there are
didn't
all
exist.
sorts of all sorts of relativistic issues that we won't get into.
Yeah,
here,
exactly.
but
But the notion of the spectre of the Empire is still a bit more apparent after the end of the film as it was originally cut. Whereas I suppose if they're riffing off this like everybody celebrates but too soon thing, maybe it's a slightly different proposition.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're moving on to the second part of the show where we're going to focus on the Han Solo movie. Now, this is the second of the anthology spin-off movies. We already know about Rogue One, directed by Gareth Edwards, which is out in 2016. But this one is Han Solo. Now, I'm going to put my cards on the table here. Most of the stuff I've heard about new Star Wars movies has really excited me. I think, on paper, this is a terrible idea. I love Han Solo. He's perfect Harrison Ford. Can telling the story of how he came to be good?
I agree with you. And I remember reading the young Han Solo books when I was a kid and loving them. And that story's been told before, I think, kind of successfully. But there's something about Harrison Ford's performance as Han Solo across those original movies that is completely perfect as it is. Again, not factoring in stepping on Jabba's tail, but
Though he didn't technically do that.
Well, no, Harrison Ford didn't.
No,
But, someone puppeteering Harrison Ford many years later did. From the first moment you see that character, he's one of the characters in Star Wars you do not need to know where he comes from, right? Like there are no gestures at his past really, apart from his braggadocio and his purported prowess, which is called into question by Leia, I think, really pointedly in the first film. And a lot of the point of that character is that he kind of comes from nowhere, and that Luke is impressed by him, and Leia isn't. And I think a prequel or God knows, Star Wars didn't need more prequels, but something that fleshes out his background in any way, really, I think risks ruining a little bit of the kind of mystique from that film, as it did with Vader. Completely as it did with Vader is another character who's this icon of power that comes out of nowhere in A New Hope, and if you watch the films for the first time now and you see them in order, you've seen him as an annoying child, an annoying teenager, an annoying young adult, and then a giant robot man.
Now, the big challenge here, of course, is if we're going for a younger Han Solo, Harrison Ford's out of the question unless they're doing a lot of CG to de-age him. I mean, how do you recast Han Solo?
Yeah, almost impossible. Like, my thinking is that they should just cast someone unknown. Like, I honestly couldn't point at someone and say, yeah, he would make a brilliant young Harrison Ford.
Yeah, I hope they don't see it as a potential star vehicle. That could be a disaster. Like, everyone's going to say, please not Chris Pratt. And I like Chris Pratt. And he's, but he's getting those roles, right? Like he's.
But I mean, he's linked to Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
It looks like he's probably had conversations about it. But
he's the closest we've got. But maybe I don't know how young they're going to go with him.
Well, I mean, Chris Pratt is pretty much the same age as Harrison Ford was in the original trilogy, so it's not really.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not young Han Solo.
No, just younger than the current one.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's a good idea.
It'd be a tricky one, but I mean, there are a couple of things going for it in that. I mean, you said at the beginning that it sounds like a terrible idea on paper, but Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are the directors, have made a career out of making amazing films out of things that sound terrible on paper.
It was because obviously the Lego movie,
should have been awful, but was brilliant.
It was awesome.
Yes, it was awesome. 21 Jump Street, again, should have been terrible, but was amazing. So if anyone's going to pull this off, it's going to be them, I think.
And also, they have, writing it, they've got Lawrence Kasdan, of course, who wrote Empire Strikes Back, teaming up with his son John. So, if anyone's got a chance, I guess it is them, but it is a tricky thing to get right. But also, what would you want to see in a Han Solo movie? I mean, I guess it's got to have Chewbacca in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I would be pretty surprised if it didn't have some element of Chewbacca origins.
Or how they met and how they became BFFs. I think the one thing I don't want them to do is I don't want Han Solo to be a hero in that film. I think this is sort of what I'm getting at, is them spoiling his appearance in New Hope. Like, the point of that, his character of the original trilogy, is him going from being somebody who does not want to get involved to making a heroic decision basically on Chewie's prompting at the end of New Hope, and then by Return of the Jedi finding himself as a general. And that's really interesting. But if this movie is Han Solo defeats a small part of the Empire elsewhere 10 years ago, then again, that's the problem with prequels in every big franchise, is can you avoid diluting the journey those characters went on? It's kind of like, I guess, with Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
Where he is not the character he is in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's the cynic Indiana Jones is out there for fortune and glory, and then he that film changes him in some way. So I guess we're kind of almost before that with Han Solo.
Yeah, I'd rather see the crime movie where Han Solo is a smuggler getting on the wrong side of people, rooting for him even though he's a jerk.
Making the Kessel Run, getting units of distance confused with units of time.
Yeah. The old extended universe bent over backwards to explain that and did so reasonably well. Had to invent a black hole to explain that one.
Yeah.
I thought that was fine.
Let's give them the benefit of the doubt on
Yeah.
that one. So, I mean, Boba Fett maybe? I mean, it's got to be the gangsters. You know, that's the world we want to see Han Solo in, isn't it?
Things like that. Han Solo's a smuggler, being a bit of a jerk, maybe on a bit of a romp. Like, I'd just like to see something that's a bit more fun.
With a wife, according to the comics.
Yeah, spoiler. Yeah, because there's going to be galaxy-ending stuff going on in the main series, and Rogue One's, I imagine, is going to be pretty serious, given that it's a war movie.
Yeah, a lot of Boffins had a brilliant time bringing us that information.
Yeah, I would quite like the Han Solo movie just to be fun. Like, I don't want it to come with weighty issues. And
I think that's one of the things with the anthology movies, isn't it? That there's no need to get sort of caught up in this huge galactic conflict. Yeah, it's this huge universe. I mean, that's one of the things I think that makes me a bit sad about Han Solo. That it's a Han Solo movie is there's so much you could choose from, and you're kind of going back to.
But he's such an iconic character. You can't blame them.
There is that.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about icons, right? You kind of have to avoid ruining them.
Yeah, but if they do it right, it could be absolutely incredible. Like, it's a new Han Solo movie that could be great. Like, how exciting is that?
The Han Solo movie.
Yeah.
I think, but the thing is, there isn't a precedent for it, right? Like, you think of, because he isn't the lead star of those films. Like, when I think about it, I just think of Indiana Jones in space, because that is the precedent I have for a Harrison Ford character in a solo vehicle, because that's what that was. And trying to figure out what it looks like to have Han Solo carry a film without other characters surrounding him that offer the idealistic perspective or the kind of serious and motivated and principled perspective.
There's obviously going to be a supporting cast in a Han Solo sort of film. We might see Lando, we might see Boba Fett, we might see Jabba or another Hutt.
Little Jabba, yeah.
Or would it just not be safer to make an IG-88 spin-off?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Okay, well, we've got plenty of time to find out about Han Solo, because that's not out until May 2018. We'll be back next week with episode 14 of Stay on Target, but until next time, may the Force be with you.
That was a pretty sweet video, right? If you want to see more, go to Games Radar's YouTube page over here. Or if you want to read, maybe up your game a little bit, go to GamesRadar.com.